Alright, I'm just going to refresh the stream, make sure we're caught up with the start. It looks like we're back underway.
Now, it may not look like... Yeah, they're just like 15 seconds apart, stream delay-wise, so they actually did start at the same time this time. That'll get fixed up in a moment, just so that people don't think that it happened again.
Link leaving the house now. He never has to bring an umbrella because he won't be in the rain for very long.
Nope.
Looks like we are lining the streams now.
Yeah. And so in this first part, you're going to see a lot of pumping in the first 11 minutes, at least from Benteezy's side. SpaceKatUniverse may opt to not pump at all, or may just do wall pumps, which aren't very noticeable. But pumping is essentially a technique where when you're moving down, up or to the right, you can pump the direction, any diagonal direction, and you'll move like a frame faster, or not move that faster at all, but you can move a bit faster.
Yep, Link's movement speed is faster when he's moving in those two cardinal directions, and if you alternate back and forth between, say, up and left or right, and particularly against walls, for example, you can make yourself move at the higher movement speed. Not constantly, because nobody's like frame perfect, but you know, you can definitely save some time. Over the course of the run, though, it's pretty negligible. There's a few times where it really matters, like stairs.
Yeah, so the biggest time saves is stair pumping. It's also the easiest pump, so that's convenient.
The earliest big example of where it really helps your movement speed that we're going to see is in these sewers, actually, where you're going to see it help with the movement speed that you lose in the water. And as Dodecahedron's mentioning in the chat here, he's correcting us. He's right. It's up and left for the directions.
I don't know why I thought it was right. But yeah, this game is a game that at the top level is like super optimized, like down to trick saving 6 frames or losing you a second. So like that's how optimized this game gets. It's probably one of the more optimized speed runs. All of that has to do thanks to the community being so large.
And for those of you at home who are interested in running this game, there's a really great ROM hack out there called the Link to the Past hack. It's in its 9th version now, and it allows you to use presets throughout the entire game. So if you want to, see exactly how many frames you spend in a room, if you want to work on a strat like 20 times in a row, you don't have to be a wizard and program something yourself. We've actually got a lot of resources here to learn the game.
Yeah, you don't even have to make a billion save states like you might for other games. You just download it. The save states are basically there for you. It's beautiful. Every single room, perfect.
The only problem for me is I keep wanting to hit L, B, and select every time I try the hammer jump in an actual run.
Yeah, those of you who don't know, this is a 128-person tournament. Players of all skill levels were invited. The only requirement is that you signed up, you put a time on speedruns.com, you proved that you could actually beat the fight, that you could beat the game with the rules. And that's it, as long as you beat the game.
And there's also no requirements for consistency, so as you've probably seen if you've been watching any of the other runs, quite a lot of people will die in this tournament in their runs, and I imagine as we get closer and closer to the end of the elimination phase, we'll see less and less of that in the run, but that's the biggest thing that you can do to be fast in this game, is just don't die.
Yeah, so there's going to be roughly 64 matches a week on average over the next 5 weeks. 4 weeks, so it's 4 or 5 weeks, and basically all of this stage should be done before the 24th, and then we'll be into a bracket elimination stage.
That's for the people who are actually good at this game, though, not myself.
So yeah, this run is also like going to be the matches are going to get progressively closer and better, because we're going to have, say, because the way that groups worked was we took 4 buckets of players, 4 buckets of 32 players, ordered by their PB, and we split those buckets into the different groups. So that's just kind of how you do it, and the matches have been really interesting. I mean, even to see how many new people there are and what strategies they use to get through the game. It's an easy game to pick up. It's not an easy game to do well in, but it's pretty much the definition of easy to learn, hard to master, because there's just so much like safety things you can do in every single room, and there's other things you can grab. And we're seeing the key grab there, the Northwest Key Rat, running towards Benteezy, which is good.
Yeah, you don't get that too often.
He usually likes to stay in a corner. These rats are the...
All of our runs run a lot of really bad RNG in their escape.
Yeah, so a lot of the escape actually is just like recognizing the enemy movement and just trying to avoid them as much as possible. Also, subtle little trick there. Normally when you walk in this room, Zelda says something, but if you hold right at when you leave the room, she doesn't say anything. She just skipped the trigger by running against the wall like that.
You can also grab the switch that's on the wall a little bit left of the switch. It's going to look kind of weird if SpaceKat pulls it off here, but you can save like a couple frames just grabbing it a little sooner. Unfortunately, we triggered the text box in this room. And Benteezy skips Sanctuary Heart. This is interesting.
Oh, that's a little... I'm seeing that a little bit more than I thought. I thought everyone would grab it in the bracket stage at least, just to get through the arm, because best time does matter, but so does average time. So you don't really want to not take that same cart, die, and then boom, suddenly problems. Because best time is how you'll be seated, but average time is going to be your tiebreakers. So.
One thing that our runners do also have to consider is, besides just not dying, there are some sections that do require you to take some damage, or if you're going to go the long route, you would have lost time anyway. For example, the big key in Eastern Palace coming up here, there's 1 damage boost we need to take if we're going to do the fast draft for that room. So to do this without the extra Sanctuary Heart speaks to a little bit of confidence. I'm pretty impressed by that. I also learned recently that if you boomerang this Armos statue, he doesn't move around and you have less lag in this screen. Both of our runners now heading into Eastern Palace. Eastern Palace doesn't have a whole lot of things that you can do to make things, more efficient with your routing. You really just got to have clean movement. There is a nice little trick we're going to see in a moment here on Benteezy's screen with the skeletons that are in the next room after this one. They usually spawn 4 of them. However, if you actually throw pots in the right spot, in the right order, you can actually prevent the rest of them from spawning. You can only have to kill 2 of them. The exact nature of why, I'm not exactly sure. Do you know anything about that, Benteezy?
Yeah, it actually has nothing to do with how fast or how fast you kill them, how fast you do it. It's entirely based on where you step on a square.
Also, sorry for calling you Benteezy, you're Zelnis.
That's okay. So as long as you hit, there's like a box. It makes like a basically an open cup, and you can see a graph of it. And if you hit a specific spot, 2 of the skeletons, one spawns in a pot, in the pot the middle pot, and the other spawns in the door. And they can't actually spawn the sprite, so then you only need to kill 2 of them. This is what would be the most standard category of this game, which is no major glitches.
There are a number of other runs. Some people will do the 100% category. This would normally be like a really appealing speedrun for most games. Unfortunately, the biggest instances of randomness in this game actually happen with the Shovel Dig and with the chess game in Thieves Town, and that makes the category a nightmare to grind. Looks like both of our runners managed to pull off the skip in the big key room pretty efficiently here.
Yeah, there are various ways to do that, but it basically boils down to hit a popo, slide into the block, and then basically go back into the block to hit the button and bounce back out. Using the damage frames of the popo, getting hit by the popo to get through.
And the invincibility frames are very generous in this game. You're going to see this get abused a few times in the game, not just damage boosting, but a much later boss fight. We'll pretty much use that exclusively to avoid doing about, I don't know, half as much damage to ourselves.
Yeah, pretty much. There's also going to be just times where we're going to abuse the fact that when you hit an enemy, they lose their hitbox for you. So you can slide right through. In fact, I can't remember how our runners got past the Armos, because these are the Armos Knights, and the statues outside are just Armos statues. Sometimes getting past those statues, you will just you'll poke it with a sword and then walk past it. That's the strategy I usually use.
And it looks like Benteezy here had a pretty good recovery against Armos Knights. There's a setup that he was trying to do in the top right corner, allows us to go through the entire cycle very quickly. But if you miss one of those arrows, you kind of have to recover on the spot. Not exactly impossible to do, it's just, the more you run this game, the easier it gets.
Yeah, and SpaceKat did the quick kill on the 2 red eye doors. Oh, shooting too many arrows there. You usually actually want to shoot 5 and then turn. Got more than enough arrows though, so we should be fine. We won't see slash strats being employed, hopefully.
One other thing that our runners do have to keep in mind is they have to keep an eye on their arrow count. This comes up in a couple of other dungeons later where it makes a big difference whether or not you have even one arrow. Biggest thing that comes to my mind is Palace of Darkness. I actually had this happen to me in a run earlier where I just didn't have it to hit that switch and you gotta go the long way. On our right, we can see Benteezy here has the fast shoes. Fast shoes make everything in this game better. Also helps with a lot of the glitches. You're going to see one here in a moment called spin speed.
The way that this works is you basically hold out a spin, and the way I do it, I think the way that a lot of people do it, is they slide their finger from the sword button or the spin button over to the dash button. That usually does it, because you basically need to go spin and then dash.
Yeah, it's got to be literally the exact next frame. So, I mean, if you roll your thumb, it's pretty easy to do consistently, but another one of those things, like, you just got to do it a bunch of times to get used to it. Yeah. We'll have other ways of doing it later in the run. We'll talk about that when we see it.
Yeah, the gist of it is you're storing the speed of your dash by canceling it out with the animation, the charge animation. It's a little weird, but it's just, if you've seen 3D Zelda, think of it like ISG or similar like storage techniques in the 3D Zeldas.
Or heaven forbid, barrier skip.
Yeah, I was about to say it's very similar. Actually, in fact, we do item dashing in this game. Item dashing is a very similar concept to item dashing in Wind Waker.
Clearly, this is just the most superior Zelda.
But moving on to Desert, fairly simple dungeon with a very difficult boss, but we'll explain it a bit more when we get to the boss itself.
For those of you who haven't watched this game, you may have flashbacks to the movie Beetlejuice. A couple funny moments there, but this is going to be a very interesting boss fight for both of our runners. I see Scrivo in the chat mentioning that that is not the commentary for this match, but I would honestly be complimented if I was called one of those people.
I mean, you say that, but trust me, you don't want to be constantly reminded that you are not, in fact, a very, very good speedrunner.
I was going more for the jokes. Scribo's got some pretty good puns.
But we are about to finish Desert. It's basically just dash optimization. It's got long hallways, so you get to dash a lot.
And that's actually like a really large chunk of the time save in this game. You know, I mean, once you've kind of been able to get through the run without dying, you're going to find that just doing the same thing regularly in every room makes the biggest difference, because it's the little changes in how you move. Like if you have to dash twice, you got to charge up each dash. Those add up over time. One thing you'll notice on SpaceKat's screen here is that if you dash into the torch, you know, that knocks it off, but you can actually slide around the torch. As long as you've made contact with it and then hit the wall, it'll actually fall off as well. She may have just taken that route to be a little bit safer with the eye statue.
As far as I know, you don't even need to contact the wall. If you hit that wall from like the side, like you basically just do a dash. Unless I think you still knock it off the torch. I think it's just about what. Basically,
So as long as you boost edges.
Yeah, the wall on the left. No, even just the wall on the left side. I think triggers it, at least a part of it. It's a weird wall. There's lots of weird oddities to this video game. We can point out some of the more obvious ones, like key dashing. Hey, we didn't explain key dashing. We can do that now. Normally, when you key dash when you dash into a door, you bonk. But if you have the key and you dash into a door on certain pixels, that will basically let you slide right through the door. It only works on some pixels.
So how that works, like more specifically about pixels, is it's increments of 4 pixels. So you have to line up. Basically, if you were to look at like the game as a grid, most items are aligned along that. So what most runners do in the rooms that call for it is they'll line up with a torch on the wall or the wall itself. And as long as you line up perfectly, the collision detection for Link doesn't pick up that he's going to bonk into a wall until after he's already opened the door.
Yeah, we'll see that quite a bit in the run, actually. There's a lot of places it's used.
Well, that was a pretty clean finish for Lamolis.
So the reason why SpaceKat didn't get there, so key dashing when you are alongside like the other end of a wall, what you need to do is you need to start your dash looking away from the door, and then do a dash turn, which you have a few frames where you can change the direction of your dash after it's started, and that's how you key dash through that door and a few other doors. Others, for example, Ganon's Tower key dash, you just don't move, you don't touch anything, you just go.
I mean, really, we should have signed up Link for the NFL, because he can turn on a dime. He'd break ankles all day.
There we go. That's another. So that's one of the minor glitches. One of the bigger ones. That saves what 6 seconds of overworld movement if you get that first try.
But you also feel really good doing it too.
Yeah. So basically, what we're doing is, as long as you move, you have about like 1 frame to move to the left, or sorry, to the left or right when you are jumping from a ledge into the water. So if you're one basically pixel away, not 1 pixel, but you know, if you are within a pixel of the transition, 1 movement, then you can get straight through.
Yeah, you've definitely got control for at least that much time.
Yeah, and if you do it right, then you basically chip the game to the thing and you can swim. Because you transitioned while swimming, so the game doesn't double check to remove you. Now, if you get hit like that, you will soft lock, which is a little annoying.
And in the group stages of this tournament, you are permitted to save and quit out of that. And also on the left here, SpaceKat had a really clean finish as well for her Lamolis fight, about 3 cycles faster than I would normally do that. Anytime you can do it without 1 dying or 2 having to sword spin your way through it, you usually finish it pretty quick.
So Ben, very, very close to dying, does not want to risk it. You can talk to the old man or the potion girl or Zelda, and they'll all heal you. I can't remember if Zelda actually does or not.
It's either him or either Zelda or the priest.
Or both. I know it's both in randomizer, but I never know what's added in randomizer, so I try to avoid it. But yeah, Old Man Kiss needed. He's at 1 heart, 1 cabbage kills him, 1 dead rock kills him. So.
Oh, interesting. So Benteezy here went for the quick warp. Didn't actually get it, but so if you go into that portal on the right side of the portal, it's actually a faster warp transition. It saves about 30-something frames, but it's free. You just got to do it. Unfortunately, he used the pause buffer to switch to mirror, and it wasn't lined up correctly. But it's based on camera position.
SpaceKat also going for the warp. That's it. Hera.
Everyone's favorite dungeon.
Yeah, Ben joining us in chat. Go for the Suede version of that strat. Doing the TS. Lots of people will just opt. Sorry, the item dash. Oh, is he going to go for it? He is going to go for it. This is a tough item dash here. He does not get it, though.
So, tile rooms in Zelda games, I mean, this is the closest you... Wow, he pulled it off. This is the closest you get to a scrolling level like you would in the Super Mario game.
Yep.
A lot of people call it the coffee break.
So, basically what he did there. So, item dashing is another frame perfect trick. You press A and you press dash an item. I didn't want to say because I have my controller set very differently, so I try to avoid saying buttons. You press dash and that dash an item at the same frame, but that one requires you to press dash item and down on the same frame, and then do a dash turn to go forward.
Triple frame perfect inputs.
Pretty much. Well, one of them is just 1 frame. So like the item dash just requires 3 buttons on the same frame, and then you need to dash turn, which is not frame perfect technique.
Yeah, you do have the charge up time.
You do have a bit of time. It's not the full charge up, but it is most of it. So it is still tough to get. Don't get me wrong. That's hard to get, and you need to stop your dash in the right spot, or else you're just trapped behind it, and then you still have to play the room. You don't get your break.
Looks like Kat's ready to join us here in Hera, and right now we're about to see our first bomb jump of the game. There's several different setups you can do for this. Let's see what Benteezy here does. Unfortunately, he doesn't get it.
And he abandoned it, so he's just going to go for the... Oh no, he's opted to... Oh, he realizes he only has 1 heart, so he actually can't go for it.
Oh, that's true. And I didn't even check to see if he lowered the switch, so he may actually have to do the whole fight with 1 heart as well. No, he's still got the pots. As you can see on the left, SpaceKat also can do the same thing. Just by placing
Wait, what? What?
Oh, no.
That shouldn't have happened. Okay.
Rarely if you're not holding the right direction, because, I mean, he can slide off the edge there. That's happened to me once or twice, but
he landed and hit that switch. Like, he should not have been on that switch. From everything I know. That was very odd. Well, he got the bomb jump with his new bomb that he got from the pot. But that was very odd. I'm not sure why that happened. That didn't seem right. As long as you enter from the top of that hole, you shouldn't hit that. So, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so a little bit of haste here, but...
he got the really good bomb jump, though. But that's gotta feel like a relief if SpaceKat's watching. So, I guess I'll explain this. Since there will be people here who've only ever watched Randomizer, maybe, hey, Link to the Past. Oh, wait, this is what I'm used to. Runners are absolutely allowed to watch their opponents. In fact, some people encourage it. The reason why is then you can kind of play differently if you know that you're ahead or behind. Maybe take a safer strat that loses you a second if you're way ahead, or maybe you're behind and you want to take a few risks, like skip a safety you would maybe normally take just to try to win.
And Benteezy finishing up Moldorm, thankfully with no falls. Probably the biggest reason that people hate this dungeon is, well, for one, there's many Moldorms everywhere, and Kodongos, or what is that what the red ones are called?
They're both Kodondos, apparently.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, apparently they're both Kodondos. There are no Dodondos officially in this game. whatever
Very
reason.
disorienting enemy name for most people who have played the series since Ocarina.
Yeah, right? But yeah, I believe that they're Altadondos.
They breathe fire, and I hate them. That's what I know.
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, yeah, that fight has a reputation that it doesn't deserve, because Lamolus deserves it. Once you understand the fight, it becomes a lot easier. Once you kind of learn how to mitigate it.
And there are other ways to. Oh no.
That he's gonna have to reset. Yeah, he's gonna reset the tree pole, because otherwise he would have to get a completely different rupee route.
Which at this point I'm thinking is, you know, might be the backup you want to just go for, because I mean, if you don't have it, you know, trying to remember how to set it up, you know, you just got to kind of default to the secondary. Unfortunately, SpaceKat took a fall here on Moldorm. One thing that runners can do sometimes to help avoid that is if you ever sword out stretched all the way for a charged spin, if you're holding the opposite direction that you're about to fall, Link will actually stay on the edge. The unfortunate thing though is that Moldorm can still knock you from the side. And there she's using it there. We got 26 minutes for Benteezy to get a Master Sword. Should be exciting. Hopefully, you should be able to get up to the top of the Castle Tower in the next 5 minutes or so.
So yeah, this is actually fairly close, considering their PBs are so drastically different. This is much closer than you'd expect, and that's good. It's good for us. Cat is doing really well. I really wonder how many people submitted their PB just to make sure they're in the tournament, then continued to practice and just never submitted their PB again.
I've been seeing that out of a lot of people, or even just people who improved very rapidly in the last few weeks.
Yep.
I was following Tina Haxmay, if you guys watch her. Her PB increased dramatically as far as for time save, and I expect the same out of SpaceKat. I mean, I've watched a couple runs recently. She's definitely been seeing a lot of improvement. Benteezy over here, though, has grinded out quite a few runs. His repertoire is pretty impressive. I think I saw like a sum of best south like 127 or something like that.
Yes, Ben is definitely a top runner. I would put anybody with a sub 130 as a top runner at the game, because I mean, definitely 127 is like god level, I think. And then like the 127 to 130 are like really good players. That's my opinion.
I was happy to see sub 2 when I finally got it, but I mean, you know, in the race setting, you never really know what's going to happen. Aghanim 1 could give any one of these people 15 blue balls, although I think if we see more than 6, we're going to be pretty floored here in the chat.
But here we are. We've got doing double spin. That was a lot of cool strats employed there. So we'll see if he goes. He does. So so he's gonna kill some of these guards in a very specific way. Item drops are specifically done. Every item is in a drop pool. Every drop pool increases every time you get a drop, which is a 50% chance off an enemy. If you dash, it preserves the step and doesn't increase the drop. So what he did there is he dash killed those guards. The reason that he did that is because he's manipulating to get a fairy drop in Turtle Rock, which is an hour from now.
The optimization for this game is pretty crazy.
So that's not RNG manip. It seems like it would be, but it's that always those drops always work that way.
Yeah, because it's always on a cycle. So I mean, as long as you're planning out which ones you're dash killing, which ones you're regularly killing, you'll always end up with the same result.
Yep.
True instances of RNG in this run are pretty limited. I mean, you have enemy movements, and a lot of enemies can be manipulated by your own movement. Earlier on, we saw the snakes, for example, in Escape. We'll see Lammo, for example, earlier, that desert boss. Aghanim 1 here, though, is probably the biggest instance of RNG in the early half of the game.
Yeah, and Benteezy making quick work of the tower. Did super well. Yeah, again, dash killing guards. Yeah, one of the one of the goals that you want to go for is to just avoid killing as much as possible.
That's a tough habit to break.
It is.
Alrighty, we've got SpaceKat climbing the tower now as we have Benteezy going into his AGA 1 fight. For those of you who are not familiar with this fight, it happens on a very specific cycle. Do you want to explain that a bit?
Yeah, so basically, he will teleport after every attack. The first attack, and he'll do basically a set of 5. So the first attack will always be a yellow ball. The second, third, fourth, and fifth attack, second, third, and fourth attack will be a 50-50 of a blue ball, which you can't deal damage to him, or a yellow ball, which deals damage to him. Then the fifth attack is always a lightning bolt, and then it resets that pattern. So the worst you can get is 15 blue balls.
Keep in mind, folks, I mean, that's a lot of coin flips you gotta lose.
Yeah, it's is an extremely small percentage. I've actually forgotten to count his blue balls while I was explaining. But
I know, same here. I think we had 3 there.
Yeah, so I believe it's 4 or 5 is the average. So 3 is slightly below average.
This bodes well for Benteezy, not so much for SpaceKat. We'll see what she ends up with for her AGA fight. But for the rest of the run, that's not too much heavy RNG that our runner's going to have to deal with. It's going to be very execution heavy through the rest of these dungeons.
Correct. Well, some bosses that would be RNG are pretty much mitigated thanks to really, really good strats. Yeah, SpaceKat's on a really, really good pace right now.
Looks like Chad is correcting us. It was just 2 blue balls on Benteezy. That's
nice.
Impressive. It's very...
3 is average. Even better.
Wow, you were absolutely right. SpaceKat's already all the way up to AGA 1 fight. These racers still have a very tight gap. Blunt Bunny and Chad doesn't seem to be too convinced on these blue ball probabilities. I can relate. We're also having some argument about how math works here in chat. I don't know, this might be a subjective interpretation of the math. Part of the reason that we collect all these rupees early in the run is for this moment that Benteezy's doing right now. This monkey here, Kiki, charges you 10 rupees just to walk through the maze with him. He's pretty selfish. And then another 100 just to jump up here for the switch. It's a very, very bad costly time save if you don't collect these rupees beforehand, because you got to leave and come all the way back. So it's very fortunate that we grabbed everything, and SpaceKat has plenty of rupees for the same exact purpose.
Pretty sure it's already got 2 blue balls. Hopefully we... Oh, there's another. That's 3.
Everything's coming up, SpaceKat.
So we will be seeing Benteezy do a strat, basically called Hammer Yum, and it's basically one of the biggest sequence breaks in the game. Like, we just completely skip a key in this dungeon, and it's like, it's one of them. Ice Palace Spawn Jump obviously being another massive, huge, giant sequence break.
Yeah, no doubt.
Skip every key, period.
And the actual setup for Hammer Jump, there's tons of them. You can do it with pause buffers. You can do it by just, lining it up and being really good at seeing it. Doing a bufferless is very difficult, but you can also even add another bomb into the mix to open up the door that leads to the dark maze. We're going to see Benteezy doing this in just a moment, but this saves, on average, most people about 30 to 45 seconds. Mostly just depends on how much time it takes for you to set it up.
Yeah, it's, normally you would have to grab normally you'd grab the keys in a slightly different order, just for efficiency. You have to grab a key from the dark maze, which some people need to do anyway because they need extra rupees.
Alright, so
If they get gold sword, silver arrow.
looks like we are pause buffering to get on the correct Y pixel. The bomb and Link both have to be on the correct Y pixels in order to go through this railing and then walk straight forward. Oh no.
And missed it, unfortunately.
Now, does he go for the second attempt? Looks like it. He is now doing this to make sure he recovers this time. Now, normally you'd have to go down the bridge, go to the room to the right, go downstairs, grab a key, come back up, and go through this maze just to get to this spot. So it is definitely a hefty time save. It's also the coolest looking trick in my opinion.
I think Ice Plus Bomb Jump looks cooler, but that one is definitely cool. It also looks like you're going out of bounds, but you're not. The way that these railings are programmed, they're actually just straight up only programmed to prevent movement in the way that they are intended to prevent movement. So, they don't prevent you from going from the void onto the land. Because it's just not how they were. The developers never intended anybody to go over there. So.
One thing that was disappointing to me is I grew up thinking this game was perfect, and then I find out when I start running this game that there are so many ways this game is broken.
I would highly recommend that if you want to see how broken this game truly is, if you're wondering, man, if that's minor, what's major? Because like that one looks like it's pretty major, like you're going out of bounds, etc. Well, little do you know.
The Highwayman in chat asking about what is considered a major glitch. The big thing that we look for in the community is things that would really truly sequence break the game, or you'd be going like way out of bounds. One such glitch is called exploration glitch, where you confuse the game into thinking that you're on a different layer. You'll see that like there's two different floors in certain rooms, and so that glitch allows you to walk through walls and go right to the Triforce. This makes the run not very competitive, so in the interest of making the speedrun interesting and fun to play, we created the no major glitches category. Well, I wasn't part of the community at that point, but it's just a much more entertaining run to watch, and minor glitches just allow us to be a little faster at the game.
Yeah, there's the gist of it is, if it would let you go out of bounds or would let you skip entire dungeons, it's not allowed.
And here we have the Helmasaur fight, and right behind Benteezy, we also have SpaceKat running to the bomb bridge. You need 17 hits in order to break the mask of Helmasaur King. You can also use 4 bombs, which is the originally intended strat.
I don't know if it was always intended. I mean, you were definitely intended to use the hammer. I mean, you get it in the dungeon. It's a Zelda thin. This game kind of started where items that you get are usually the weakness of a boss.
You make a pretty good point there.
Rip Canis of Mario, though. Not a boss item.
Yeah, unfortunately. But very clean finish up on that, and SpaceKat gets the bomb jump on the first try.
Nice.
Does it the same way I do. I can't throw that bomb.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. That bomb throw only saves a few frames? Or, sorry, a few seconds? It's definitely, like, a much smaller time save, so if you're gonna mess up anything, then...
Yeah, I'm pretty floored by that, though. If I had that happen in a run, let alone in a race run, I'd be maybe pretty happy about that. So I'm sure she's running a bit of a high here, just running back through the dungeon. One thing we'll get to see on SpaceKat's screen here is you can actually shoot an arrow and hit the switch on the left. You just got to line it up right. And this allows you to save from having to go up the ladder here, or the stairs, and come back around.
Yeah, and if you ever, for some reason, are dashing and fall, you can actually do a... you actually bonk on the staircase and get back up. Which is pretty cool to see. It's quote-unquote technically EG. From what I've been told, you're technically in a state of EG when you do that bonk, but jumping back onto the ledge fixes it. So generally, like for example, spin speed is a minor glitch that leads to major glitches. So some glitches are allowed as long as they do not actually have major implications. in the way that you apply it, you use them.
Speaking of that, a lot of folks out there are probably wondering, hey, what does all this stuff look like when it's actually like being done? The actual true any percent category for this game, which allows for major glitches, is very short, a couple minutes long, because you can go right to Ganon. But if you want to see those things on Showcase, there's a lot of really great videos out there of the reverse boss order run. The reverse boss order relies heavily on exploration glitch and a lot of other really fun things, like you could even do YBA, Yasuhira's Bottle Adventure, in some runs. It allows you to see kind of the crazier things that go on here. Andy does a really good tutorial for it.
And now we're going to begin the flute, or ocarina. It looks like an ocarina, but it's called a flute in the manual and such.
And we get the one dig strap.
Yeah. And with that, the shovel is gone. Broke, I guess. Can't use it after this.
The flute is actually made of titanium. That's where the shovel broke. Looks like a pretty clean first half of Helma for SpaceKat here, and looks like we should be pretty clear to finish it up. Nice. Very clean fight.
Please know you say, okay, we ran past Usain Bolt. Good.
Usain Bolt's fast, but Benteezy here is faster.
Cat got through the total room and the boss really, really well. Cat is on great pace right now.
If I had $1 for every time I got through that turtle room cleanly, I would have probably like minus $50. So, I mean, what we're seeing from these runners is really impressive. Just like you were saying on this, SpaceKat's having a really great run here. So, I mean, for any folks out there thinking, hey, you know, I'm not good enough to run this game, or like, you know, I'm not going to, you know, be competitive in a race setting, you never know what's going to happen in a race, and we still have a lot of run ahead of us here. We can see on the right side here, Benteezy is heading back into the Dark World using the reverse entrance for the Kakariko portal. This is going to take him to Thieves Town next, where we're going to get our heavy lifting gloves. EA and chat's also pointing out something that a lot of people don't know about, is that the tree on the left path north of Kakariko, you can actually bonk into that to get apples. It's a really good way to recover some health if you're in a pinch. One of the nice things about dungeons like Thieves Town and Ice Palace is if you really know where you're going, it's a lot faster than you would normally play casually. In this case, Benteezy only has to go up, right, down, and left, and then there's a big key. We're heading to the back half already. This is definitely a part of the run where you start to see some divergence in most runners' choices and safeties. I myself personally pick up powder before I even come to Thieves Town, so I mean, kind of brave of anybody to not do it, but I guess if you've been running it without, you're just kind of used to it. I'm definitely impressed by that, though. We also have SpaceKat on her way to Thieves Town as well. Total gap between these two still holding pretty steady. You see Benteezy here has opened up the light so that we can finish off Blind. As far as Blind goes, Blind is actually one of the few fights in this game that is truly scripted. If you do the same thing every single time, if you have a strat figured out, you can reliably finish off Blind with 0 damage to yourself and takes exactly 9 hits with whatever weapon you're using. Do you mind explaining how the damage works for Blind?
Yeah.
Oh, you had to step away for a second.
No,
I'm sorry.
sorry. essentially, he takes 1 damage from a bunch of sources. The sources that we have available to us is the sword and the hammer. He takes 9. He has 9 each. I'm sure this isn't how that works, but he has, think of it essentially, he has 9 HP and all sources of damage that he can take. Only deal 1. So it doesn't matter if we upgrade our sword or not for this boss.
There is, however, an advantage to having full health walking into the fight, though, because sword beams make recovery strats a lot easier.
Yes. You'll see a lot of people will consider getting extra hearts. And that is... Oh, trying to do an item dash there, it looked like, to get the pot, but the skeleton got in the way. So what we'll do here is actually blind is pretty scripted. If you can do it essentially the same every time.
As far as the spinning heads go, if I have this correct, I believe that only 1 of the shots in a cycle actually tracks you specifically on where you are on the screen. So if you know the pattern of it, then you'll almost never get hit by it. But it is tracking a lot of things on screen at once. Thankfully, Benteezy here with a very clean fight didn't have to take any laser shots from blind. That's what happens if you do the fight correctly. After blind here, Benteezy is going to upgrade his sword, so we got a couple of quick overworld things to take care of. He may also be grabbing the rupees for flippers later. There's 2 sources that give 300 rupees in Thieves Town. Well, not the dungeon, but Dark Kakariko. And those are going to be used for that purpose. He may be able to buy a potion if he had a bottle, but I don't think he even took a bottle. Yep, so he's grabbing the first set now. That's one of the nice things about this actual run. A lot of games have you having to try to collect a ton of items throughout the run, hopefully end up with enough. Besides the early rupee routing, just to make sure you have enough for Kiki at Palace of Darkness, these 2 rupee pickups are guaranteed. You're never going to have to worry about your rupee count. So this is really useful to be able to do this all right now. And to do so well in advance of when you have to get the flippers for Swamp Palace and Ice Palace. Cat here heading upstairs. These green lizards are some pretty dangerous enemies for anybody. If you happen to run into them, I believe they do two full hearts of damage. And they do not move consistently. Like I find more often than not, they trip me up on every single turn. Here we have a couple dwarven swordsmiths, or I'm sorry, breadsmiths. As you can see, they're loafing their bread.
Nobody's played Minecraft. Who says that joke? It's a bar.
Yeah, but a bar of what?
Iron. Iron's red when it's smelted.
I'll give you that.
Old metal's pretty red when it's smelted. This is kind of molten rock. It's a compress. Nobody's played. No.
Which it makes me wonder, though. I mean, what kind of metal is his sword made out of? The questions that we really need answered. I think there was a YouTube series about Forged or something like that, where they made swords from actual games. I would love to have something like that.
Oh no, Cat's getting the worst RNG here. This stupid red Zazik shooting up the hallway. That is absolutely the worst.
The absolute hero of Team Ganon, just sniping the hallway. However, she does have full health thanks to the powder. This should be the best possible opportunity for blind. We also see on the right here, Benteezy's getting his statue game on here with the mummies. Just a quick little dance, make sure he doesn't get picked up by too early from the ball. Ninja Puppy Gaming in chat asking about the bunny beams, powdering them. Yes, you can. One thing to keep in mind, though, is you have to do so before the bunny beam starts to chase you, or else it no longer works. It looks like SpaceKat here is familiar with the fast strat on this boss. Should be a pretty fast cleanup here.
It's not too hard once you practice it, unless you let it get off the rails. Sometimes if the timing is off, it can be pretty hard to keep the fight straight.
All in all, though, very clean execution, and should be very rapidly going to get the bread sword, or the iron sword, depending on which community you take your jokes from. And Benteezy here showing us just how quick Skull Woods is. He's going to pick up a key here, so he doesn't have to go the long way in the next half, but that's the first half done.
Yeah, there's a lot of extra keys in this dungeon, so we skip a lot of them.
One thing you'll see him doing here is you can actually take advantage of the hitboxes on the floors. You can slide over small gaps, and if you're smart about it, you can completely avoid that entire puzzle. Oh no, he takes a death here in the back half of Skull Woods. Thankfully, he's got the other entrance to spawn from, so it shouldn't be a gigantic time loss. But more things like that will give extra chances for SpaceKat to catch up here. Let alone the worst boss deaths that we may potentially see later on in the run. Oh, but that item dash, though, to get through that door. Iskaron in chat here pointing out that Kat is currently 3.5 minutes ahead of her PB. That's impressive. That's a lot of time saved early on in the run. Wow, Benteezy making Mothia look like it's a piece of cake. This is one of the more frustrating dungeons. As you can see on the floor, there's conveyor belts going in random directions. There's spikes in the wall. They come at you randomly. And on top of that, and Zelda might be able to explain this a little better, you can't actually do damage to Mothula against the walls. What's that all about?
So Moth is being programmed, so you can't take damage from what we call Class 4 damage, which not only includes spikes. Oh, get in the half magic, by the way, for SpaceKat. Not as common of a safety, but can help especially with a few bosses in the game.
Definitely makes things a lot more consistent.
Yeah, so Moth only takes damage from Class 1 through 3 damage. Class 4 is Golden Sword, Tempered Spins, Golden Dash. You just can't take damage from those. So what happens in that fight is if you damage Moth, he knocks back, like most things. If he knocks back into a spike, the spike overrides the damage that you were going to do to him and makes the fight very annoying, frustrating, and you're technically, dungeon order-wise, supposed to do that before you have Tempered. So you'd have to hit him 8 times instead of the 4 you do if you go to Thieves Town first.
And so the best way to go about that boss is just mostly keep Mothula in the center of the room. If you have Fire Rod shots available, it does a lot of damage. But I mean, Tempered Sword is definitely powerful. If you can keep Mothula in the center, usually not too stressful to fight. But it can go sideways real quick.
Luckily with Tempered, again, the fight doesn't take super long.
We've got SpaceKat here picking up the last of the rupees for what Benteezy over here is about to do, which is pick up the flippers as well as Quake. We have an opportunity to showcase an easy quick warp. I'm not sure if he does this every time, but if you bonk off the wall to the right here, the camera will be lined up perfectly on that 1x axis pixel. That'll give him a quick warp when he goes back to the light world.
Yeah, the camera basically scrolls itself up when you bounce, and then the cutscene interrupts it from scrolling back down. So it will always give you the quick warp, which saves 34 frames.
Here we have Kat in the trolley room in Skull Woods. See how she handles with the mummies here.
Stuck mummy! He'll never come out of that spot. Poor guy.
He's just watching from around the corner. It's not creepy at all.
Pulling out the powder to get that bunny beam.
Here we have Benteezy picking up his flippers. If it weren't for one or two small spots in the game where you can't bypass things using, say, something like fake flippers, this would otherwise not be required. But it is absolutely required to handle Swamp Palace, and we can't skip that. So we have to do this, and we do this with Quake because you're going to have to get there anyway. This is a great time in the run to be doing it. You could technically do a few things out of order. When I first started running this game, I actually did Ice Palace first because you could fake flipper to there. But this is easily the most consistent, simple way to do it. Probably the best way to route it.
Yeah, because otherwise you have to flute anyway to get there. But yes, the fake flip is an option.
We may see a couple of differences in routes throughout the tournament for that, but for the most part, the route differences that you're going to see for most people are just going to be differences in what safeties they pick up. And that's one of the nice things about this run is there's not really like downtime besides button mashing after bosses, and it's, you know, everyone's constantly moving to the next thing. As people run this game more and more, you start to see that it's almost like they're not even thinking; it's just autopilot to get from A to B.
Until something goes wrong. But Benteezy has been having a great run so far.
Yeah, impressive work from both of these runners. On the left here, we have Space Cat going through the Skull Woods Hellway, as we like to call it. You got to light all these torches and still get through the door before they expire. Handled it pretty well and got a full refill of magic, so she's got more than enough fire rod shots to work with. On the right here, we have Benteezy, though, getting ready for his bomb jump. Ice Palace bomb jump being one of the more lucrative time saves in the game.
This allows you to skip the entire dungeon. You do not have to pick up a single key. You don't have to pick up the big key. You don't have to. You go through the least amount of rooms. You basically just bypass the entire puzzle of this game.
Definitely smooth to get that in the first try. It's a lot easier to do that bomb jump than, say, the hammer jump because you don't have the time constraint to worry with, and that fire bar will never hit you as long as you're lining it up. But it's definitely the same story. You got to have perfect alignment with the Y pixels.
Oh, Space Cat. Unfortunately, being at full health in that fight, Mothula does take damage from sword beams. So instead of dealing tempered damage, they were dealing sword damage, like level 1 sword. So the fight lasted a little bit longer than it would have normally, which means that more spikes are out. But that death is not super costly, so.
Yeah, it's one of the few in the run where you don't have to go through an entire dungeon again just to get back to the fight. We have here on the right Benteezy dropping down to Cold Stare, one of the tougher bosses of the fight. This boss, you have to completely break out of his shell. He's not very friendly at parties. You got to make sure he's warmed up. Managed to get them into the corner, however, they have started moving around. One thing that runners can pick up when they're trying to do this difficult boss is that as one of these things dies, you have a lot of lag frames, so you can kind of use that to help you line up with the next one. But with 3 hearts remaining, very clean finish for Cold Stare. Benteezy's on a tear here.
And Cat dealing with the boss a lot better the second time.
Gotta love the simultaneous button mashing.
Yep.
The next thing that we might see that might be different between these runners, Ben may choose to pick up the Ice Rod before going to Mire. This is one of the few things that are really kind of put wherever you want in the run once you've got, say, the flute. But ultimately, it's pretty similar. You're not going to see much of a difference there. just goes to show you, though, how fast Ice Palace is. I mean, these runners are still relatively close. It's just, you know, with that bomb jump, you can absolutely cut that dungeon down. Probably the fastest dungeon in the game, honestly.
So this is probably where we're gonna see their routes diverge. I don't know if SpaceKat is gonna do golden, but based on all the other safeties taken, I assume they will. So based on the money that they have and how they've routed their rupees. So my guess is that SpaceKat will be getting golden swords. So they'll be doing these dungeons in a little bit of a different order. After Ice Palace, SpaceKat will most likely go to Misery Mire, the 6th dungeon. And then do Swamp instead of Swamp then Mire.
And with that, Ben has entered Swamp Palace. We also have on our left here SpaceKat's doing the catfish and the flippers. You know, gotta do a little bit of shopping. Swamp Palace, the notorious dungeon for backtracking. Unfortunately, sometimes people do forget to hit switches and pick up keys before they flood the floor. That's an important thing if you play this game, is that you do not want to flood the room in the next opportunity you get to do it before you pick up the key. You would have to leave the dungeon, go a screen over, and then restart the dungeon. Massive time loss. Big thing to avoid.
Yeah.
On the bright side, though, we do get our favorite item, the boing 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 hook shot. Some of these text boxes for these items are great. I don't know if you ever noticed before, but when you pick up the hammer, it actually says MC in the text chat.
Yep. Yeah. No, it definitely says that. I mean, a lot of Japanese games will have random pop culture references, and in the 90s, MC Hammer was definitely a pop culture reference, so... When you're playing this game non-randomizer, it is actually somewhat hard to flood the key. You have to really mess up, I think, because it's hard. I don't think you can get to this crystal switch without that key. But what you can do is forget to hit this crystal switch again. That would be bad. Doing that is where you lose all the time.
Yeah, and the worst way you can do it is you can go all the way to where you're supposed to drop down, fall down the hole, and find out you're blocked by switches. That's not fun, and that's actually worse to mirror. So like everybody's instinct is to mirror, but it's actually slower anyway.
Which is amazing considering how slow it is to get back.
I want to say like Misery Mire is the only other example of a dungeon that's really that bad to mirror, and well, maybe Turtle Rock as you get closer to like the other entrance, but.
Well, Turtle Rock, you can't really make a mistake that would require you to go back or get to a point like that dungeon is very linear. It goes in one direction the whole time. Mire, though, is very loopy. It's got lots of different areas to go in, so your instant almost is to mirror after getting the big key. But no.
Mistakes have been made in the past. But with that big key, all Ben has to do is get back to that big chest and head back to the back half of the dungeon to take on Argus. He's pretty fast runner of this game. I'm wondering if he's going to try to do the zero cycle strat. Oh, we also see here on SpaceKat's screen, a very nice strat to kill both of those Stalfos Knights. All you gotta do is just make sure you get the top one to spawn, put that bomb there, and run down to the bottom. But you can get them both in one try, and it takes a lot of lag out of that screen. When you have a lot of moving enemies that have like dynamic movements on screen, there's tons of lag in the Super Nintendo. So if you are smart about it, you can save a fair amount of time just by doing things a certain way every time. SpaceKat with a very clean bomb jump. part of the reason that people hate Ice Palace so much. I mean, it is a fast dungeon, but you have to deal with ice physics, and I mean, you might not have to worry about that again until try next, but it's never fun to try to make sure you're in control. One thing that most people will do to try to regain control is they'll either swipe their sword at certain timings to influence the momentum, or they'll do a dash to move in a cardinal direction, like SpaceKat just did. And this allows us to give us at least a little bit of control. Little things like that will make Ice Palace a lot easier to deal with. Here we have Ben walking into the Argus fight. Let's see what he does.
He's gonna go for zero cycle. It's pretty hard. Yeah, I know he didn't really have the. He is going for the. Wow. Okay, never mind. He did sort of get it. He
almost
has to wait for the animation still.
So for those of you not familiar with this boss fight, there's a way that you can do this so that Argus never spins his puffs around. We call it zero cycle. But you have to do item dashes, so you have to hit Y and A on the same frame consecutively for every one of those puffs. Very difficult strategy, but if you get it, it looks really sweet. And then the
oh, sorry. I just want to point out this is the place where Half Magic saves the most amount of time for SpaceKat.
Yeah, with a very clean fight. Using Fire Rod there makes things so much easier, and you can actually hit more than one of those at the same time. We've seen a lot of really clean bosses out of these two, though. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with Trinex and the rest of GT. Also pretty interesting that they're lining up their their button mashing again. This has been a very, very smooth race for both of these runners. Wouldn't be surprised to see a really nice PB out of SpaceKat today. Oh, Benteezy pulling off the hook dash to make the duck, as we like to call him, pick him up faster. Hook dashing is very much like spin speed. It's the exact same glitch, or the same glitch state, but you can get the spin speed state by just doing an item dash with the hook shot out. And that's a lot faster and more consistent than spin dashing. Unfortunately, we fell off the ladder here. Also, by the looks of things, it seems like SpaceKat's going to go after the Ether Medallion at the same time. So this is our route divergence we were talking about. She does pull off the Quick Warp, but these folks have to go up here to the top in order to make sure they have access to Misery Mire. So, Zelda, you're 100% on point with that. It looks like SpaceKat's going to try to go to Misery Mire next.
Yeah, it makes sense. Based on the fact that she still uses the half magic, which you definitely cut before Master Sword, or before the swords. Maybe not though. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one you cut first. I know I still prefer to use silver arrows, and I don't use half magic anymore. But
I guess in terms of
yeah, it all depends on what you personally want to do.
And at the end of the day, that's exactly the priority here, because I mean, a lot of folks are, you know, concerned about running this game.
Wait, never mind. No, she was just getting it early.
Okay. And yeah, and that's the other thing too, is, you know, some of these smaller items in the run, you know, those are very small differences in time total spent. This allows her to not have to worry about going back up the Death Mountain until Turtle Rock, which, you know, I mean, matter of preference, really.
Yeah, so doing this though, usually a lot of people connect in their mind grabbing the ice rod and grabbing the ether medallion. So hopefully she remembers.
Potentially one of the worst time losses in the game.
Most people realize it when they go to menu to Quake, but sometimes you forget all the way until Trinex.
Yeah. Oh, we get the bird toss.
Oh, Benteezy. That's definitely Benteezy's.
Ben the true meme lord. That dash against that bonk, or that bonk against that block, a fun strat to get into Misery Mire with one less menu. Oh, and a very clean whizzer over him. looks like we got Emma in chat saying that this is actually the route that SpaceKat always takes. So, yeah, and that's the thing too, is like you said before, you know, you're not going to see massive differences in time. I mean, some things are like a handful of frames faster than another. So at the end of the day, since so much of this relies upon our runners not dying, or at least dying very infrequently, you know, it's just the safety and preference of your choices matters a lot more than what is technically considered optimal. Here in Misery Mire, though, Benteezy is about to show us another minor glitch that you can do. When you're pushing a block, you can actually interact with a few different items differently. You can use items through them if they can travel through those spaces behind them. So in this example, we have Ben using the fire rod through the block itself. You can do so with the hook shot and a couple of other items. If you're in a cave, you can actually erase the block while using a mirror. I would not try that trick when you're in a dungeon, though. With the big key, we're just on a straight mad dash to the basement, where we're going to have a couple more dark rooms, some of the last few that we'll see in the game. There will be a couple in Turtle Rock, and a couple other examples that we can potentially go past. But yeah, it's good to be done with the mazes pretty soon. Here in Swamp Palace, we have SpaceKat moving towards the back half of the dungeon to pick up her big key. This will give her the hook shot. And on the right, we also have Ben picking up the Cane of Samaria, which, depending on the route you take, could have more or less use. In Ice Palace, some people will use it to cover the block at the very bottom of the dungeon. But for the most part, there's pretty limited opportunity to use it in this run. Definitely a very useful item in Randomizer, of course. But it plays a different role in NMG, that's for sure. Looks like Ben is avoiding the safety magic there. Must feel pretty good about his health count. He doesn't have powder, so I mean, I guess he doesn't really need magic. Coming up, we also have a small strat that we will probably see Benteezy do using an item dash. You can use the Cane of Samaria here if you place it against the wall, and if you dash upwards with good timing, you can hit the switch up there and save yourself a fair amount of time where you would normally have to mess around with conveyor belts, and it's no fun. But that does make this bottom section of Misery Mire a fair bit more efficient. Fun fact, you can grab this skull pod here on the left from through the statue. Like I said, this game is perfect and there's absolutely no flaws whatsoever. This fight that Ben is walking into against Vitreous is very interesting. The slime here on the ground gives you invincibility. Well, you take damage from it, 1 heart. And during those damage frames, you can't take any other damage like hitting those eyeballs. You can walk right into it with a sword spin and kill it very quickly. 8 straight arrows right in the eyeball and it's done. Very, very efficient, very clean fight from Ben. That was impressive. Keeping with the trend of these two runners having a lot of boss fights concurrently, SpaceKat is about to walk into the Argus fight. Tough to say if we're going to see a attempt at the Zero Cycle. I'm impressed to even see Ben do that. That's not a very easy strat. Regardless, though, pretty straightforward to kill Argus. You're just simply trying to get all these puffballs. Argus will start bouncing around at you. And depending on whether or not you use the fire rod or not, you can do it in 2 sword spins if you prefer. That's the way I do it personally, but all these get the same result, just do I not die.
You can one-shot kill the boss, but that requires setting it up, knowing how to do it, etc., etc. It's not easy.
All in all, though, smooth finish. We also have Ben here making us climb up Death Mountain to go check out Turtle Rock, see if there's 3 heads who have some opinions for him. All right. Now this is one hairy spot that Ben managed to sneak through very cleanly. These dead rocks here have a habit of just getting right in your way every single time. They love to, block your path. You can't stop them once you've hit them. Your only recourse is if you have powder, you can turn them into an enemy, or just wait. With Swamp out of the way, it looks like Space Cat is actually going to get the Ice Rod.
Yeah, I'm gonna mention that in chat.
Well, a breath of relief for me. I'm always happy to see someone not miss that.
Yeah.
It only takes once. It only takes once before you're like, I hate myself for this. It's the worst mistake you can make. Traditionally here in this torch room that Ben's in, you would normally go around the long way, but thanks to the hook shot and being able to grab torches, we can just fall off the ledge and come right back through. You'll also see him take advantage of the fact that while you're in the hook shot animation, you actually can't take any damage, so you just kind of clip right through some of these rollers. He elects to just run through the first one, though, on his way back. Space Cat over here has no love for the memes, just killing the Murderdactyl outright. Doesn't want to mess around with that. Ben in a little bit of trouble here. Oh, with a very nice recovery. Those chain chomps do a lot of damage. Normally in this run, in this game, vanilla, you would have the blue mail by now. And those chain chomps do 4 hearts of damage every time they hit you. But with some clever use of the switches and the invincibility frames they give you when they're pushed up, you can walk right through them if you're smart about it. But then again, chomps can do all kinds of crazy stuff to you. A lot of people lose their runs to that. Making your way through Mire now, Space Cat's grabbing the first key. We'll grab the one on the spikes later. And Ben, unfortunately, dying here in Turtle Rock. This will be a decent chunk of time. Thankfully, he doesn't have to go through the torch room again. As for the safeties that you end up taking in this game, this is definitely one of the places, Turtle Rock, one of the most useful places to have the powder. Doing it without that is very dangerous. So, I mean, it's a big gamble to make, but if you save a fair amount of time not going to the witch's hut, you can make up for it. Definitely a big gamble to make here with a RTA race, though. You have the luxury at home, when you're doing just your runs to reset at any time, but anything can happen in these races. Unfortunately, another death. Thankfully, though, for both of these runners, they are experienced speedrunners. They know just to get right back up on that horse. It's one of the toughest things in this game.
I mean, Ben plays a game where, like, you die, it's just like, well, okay, well, Celeste is a game where you die a lot. You just have to pick it back up. The game does a good job of teaching you persistence.
Yeah, it looked like there was a lot of movement tech in that game, a la Super Meat Boy and stuff like that.
Yeah. Hopefully Ben can get through that. That laser room can sometimes be annoying. Can get out of hand.
Speaking of this laser, one thing that you'll notice about the eye on the wall is that it only opens up to shoot at you while you're facing it and walking towards it. So you can take advantage of this walking backwards if you're holding your sword out against certain ones of them, but it's a pretty tight window to move through there. Moving on to Minor Basement, SpaceKat's gaining some steam here with these deaths in Turtle Rock. With Ganon Tower and Ganon himself still ahead, we have quite a lot of real estate ahead of us for a change in the lead even. Newer runners of this game probably hate this maze more than most people, but thankfully with just holding down in the right spaces early on in the maze and then just walking around the right side, you can get through this pretty cleanly. Some people will elect to use their hook shot to avoid the damage here, but given that you have a safety entrance coming up, probably don't need to do that. And here goes Vitreous. Cat getting some pretty clean floor damage off. Oh, but it takes a shot from one of the eyeballs.
Yeah, this the game expects you to have blue mail at this point. Oh!
Oh no.
That's not one of the best deaths, for sure.
There's a fairly long trek to get back to the basement.
It's not as long as Ice Palace or as detrimental, but it's still not the greatest thing to happen.
Yeah, it's convenient that there's a couple different warps to get to the back half. Here we have Trinex on the right side. You see that he actually switches to the fire rod before he actually does the last shot. The reason for this is because while there's an explosion going on the screen, you can't actually access the menu. So doing so a little bit early helps with that. Fun fact, the shell here for Trinex is made out of C4. And a very fast finish on the second phase. Also, another weird fun fact, that's the only boss where once you've defeated the boss, the heart always spawns in the center of the room.
That's mainly because it would spawn out of his head, but sometimes his head is way off screen, so it's just a safety measure to prevent that from happening. Funny enough, pretty much every Zelda game after this, the heart will either be automatically given to you or spawn in the same spot regardless of where you killed the boss. So Trinex started a trend.
That's not the only trend Trinex started. AKA the death of most runs. I'm seeing a new chant going on in the chat. It seems like some of our viewers here were also here for the last race with the Jedab chant. We're getting this the Go Cat Go chant. Seems like we got a couple fans in chat for you, Cat. Good luck. Benteezy here, entering Ganon's Tower at about an hour and 25 minutes and 20 seconds. SpaceKat also making very fast movement back to Vitreous. Ninja Puppy Gaming in chat asking about timers and splits and the color of them. It actually varies depending on the split program you use, the settings you use. Generally speaking, though, if it's red, the person's behind on their split. If it's green, they're ahead. But that is different for everybody. Some people just have the background color that way. SpaceKat with a very nice finish for Vitreous, finishing with more than enough health to spare. That is a scary fight, so to get through that the second time with no problems, that's got to be a relief. Ben's making very good use of his hook shot here to save a couple of extra frames just by grabbing the wall and pulling himself over to the warp. You'll see a nice little skip here. You can actually skip 2 transitions with the warps by just bonking into this wall here. Very nice little time save. We'll use another bonk in this room to cross or to skip an entire invisible bridge section. Very handy. Poor little Helmasaur just wanted to say hi. And here we go into Ice Armos, also known as Armos 2.
Okay, so she is not getting silvers, so prefers to have edge again. It does save edge quite a bit of time, and it's really safe.
She may have taken the strategy a lot of new runners have been taking lately, is to just kind of focus on learning that strat first. You know, I mean, it's more difficult, you lose a lot more runs, but at the end of the day, you're going to want to get rid of Gold Sword and maybe even Silvers eventually. So, I mean, I can see why she would do it.
Well, I mean, you get rid of it's either both or neither, honestly. Just because if you're there already, the 7 seconds to get Gold Sword is saved by the time you save in the gauntlet.
And then again, maybe she just really likes Cheetos and likes the red sword.
But yeah, no, it's totally reasonable. I just expected it based on the other safeties used. But absolutely no shame. I am not just saying that I predicted her route wrong. And good on her for cutting out the silver crutch.
Yeah, it's definitely a big difference in difficulty for your run. So I mean, for newer runners out there, if you're having trouble getting through a run without a death or something like that, don't feel bad about taking safeties. Like, it's much better to just not die.
Another safety that'll be a big question mark. Ben didn't get it, but you can get red mail from the big chest in Yanins, and a lot of people will get that.
Yeah, and at this point in the game, I mean, so much damage coming from so many different sources. You know, if you're able to avoid most of the enemies here in the gauntlet, like Ben's been doing a decent job of, then it doesn't matter so much that you pick up the reds, but the red mail. But I think it pays off the most with Ganon himself. If I recall correctly, it's you take quarter damage, right, with red mail?
Yes. Again, for example, on Ganon, it's 864, I think. For the 3 male levels. Sorry, 642. That's it. My bad. But yeah, I believe it's quarter damage.
Yeah, so I mean, for the folks out there considering whether or not they'd want to pick up red mail, I mean, think about how much damage you would normally take fighting Ganon. And that's kind of the way you want to approach it, because that's the worst place to feel like, you know, hey, I'm going to get this great run and then just kind of die.
A really good way to take it but then solve a fast Ganon is implement the fast strat that normally requires you to be super good at dodging and dodging the fireballs, and just damage boost through the fireballs because you're not taking as much damage. So you do the fast strat where you attack him inside of the Ring of Fire. And then, but like just damage boost out of it. I saw a runner do that earlier today. very useful way of using the red map. Oh, Cat got stuck.
Oh, but a very smart recovery. Oh no.
Oh no, and then the
Oh, the Chomp says no.
Chomp says no again. They're very decent. There we go.
There we go. That was scary. Well, we do have an opportunity for an anti-fairy here. Let's hope we don't collide with it, though. Yeah, wait in there a second just to be sure. On our right, we have Ben over here taking on Moldorm 2. This is the last of the repeat bosses that we're going to fight going into Aga 2. Well, that's the last one, actually, but... If you're super good at pressing buttons fast, you can hover over the gap by mashing the A button with the correct timing. That's difficult.
It's not even just fast, it's fast and very specific.
All for like a, what, 6 to 8 second time save?
Yes, I think.
I'm seeing calls for DQ in the chat, but I don't understand because he did do the bird toss, so I mean... Here in Aga 2, this fight, you have a lot of the same rules going on from Aga 1. He can either do a blue ball or a yellow ball. This time, though, we have the advantage of being able to hit him more than once per round, and Benteezy doing that in, what was that, 3 cycles? It was a relatively clean fight.
It was a very clean fight. I think it was 3.
One thing that stinks, though, is that if you have 2 of them hit at the same time, it only registers 1. So you do have to be a little bit careful to make sure you're reflecting those shots with a little bit of spacing. But you could potentially do it in 2 cycles if you get a double triple, as we like to say. Although usually you get at least 1 blue ball. And here we go into Ganon. There's a couple different ways you can optimize this first phase. You gotta do 12 swipes. If you position yourself against a wall here, you tend to get a lot of them in very fast. You do also have to avoid the fire bats. A lot of people will do exactly as Ben is doing here by hookshotting the torch down there to just avoid them all. And we're already in phase 3. The number of times Ganon warps here is completely random, and Ben is getting some very unfortunate luck.
And so the goal here...
Nice, we did manage to get a torch glitch.
The goal here is to spin. You want to get 3 hits per torch lighting, and so that would be 4 torch lightings if done optimally.
You also have a very small window to work with to get the sword spin off. Normally, the sword is not supposed to be able to do actual damage to Ganon, but thanks to the I think it's what, like 2 or 3 frames you can hit him. But thanks to that, we can do 12 sword spins to finish off Ganon. And there you have it.
And
it looks
congratulations to Benteezy.
Looks like Benteezy is finishing up with 1 hour, 34 minutes and a half. Wow, that's impressive. On the other side, we see Space Cat walking into the Trimax fight, doing the same item switch here. That was very well planned out. Looks like a very smooth first phase. This is one of those places where it just feels really great to have half magic. You can easily run out of magic if you use too many of those fire rod and ice rod shots. And there you have it. This would be a good time for us to see if we can get Benteezy in here for a quick little interview. In the meantime, though, everybody here in the chat, please cheer on SpaceKat as she finishes up a very excellent run. We got the Go Cats going in the chat. The wind is at your sails, SpaceKat. You just gotta finish it out. Looking good though.
And based on the pace, depending on how long it takes her to get through Ganon's tower, this is definitely going to be a PB. I mean, her PB list is a 151, so... Ganon's tower, on average, takes about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on skill level. So, definitely can PB here.
She also does have full arrows going into this. That's an important thing to have lined up correctly for this dungeon, because if you don't have enough arrows, there are a couple of mimic rooms that are going to make your life miserable. You need at least 8 arrows to get through them. One of the nice things about this run is that just like early in the game, you have all this really movement-intensive gameplay. There's a fair amount of combat here in Ganon's Tower, but you kind of take it back to the way the run started. You have a whole lot of just being as fast as possible through some really tricky sections. And it's a very dangerous, very difficult dungeon as well. You see, a lot of people do make minor mistakes throughout this just because of how many fast tricks you have to pull off.
I hate when that skeleton gets in the way.
It's a pretty narrow window to hit that hook shot. Proven to be a pretty frustrating room. Alright, but everything looks good. While that looks like a pretty minor thing, the boomerang trick here is actually pretty handy. You can save yourself some extra menuing. You can use that with less lag. Like if you, for any reason in an NMG run were to pick up the red boomerang, you wouldn't want to use that. It uses more lag. That's more handy for, say, the randomizer. But here in NMG, we just like to, find some quick little ways to cut a second or two here. Over the course of a hour-and-a-half to 2-hour run, definitely adds up over time.
She did grab the torch key from what I remember.
Yes, she did. So Rip Bob, any of you guys are acquainted with the glitch sprite that we'll see before Ice Arm moves?
That's not in the vanilla game.
I stand corrected. Makes me wonder why that happens.
I'm not sure.
However, we will use his replacement for some health. Space Cat here taking a relatively safe strategy through Ice Armos, just making sure that, you know, we're not missing a whole bunch of arrows, which is great because she's going to need most of them for the second half of this dungeon anyway. Okay, and it appears we are not going to pick up the red mail either, so we are full YOLO the rest of the way through.
Congratulations, Ben, on your win.
Welcome, Ben, and GG. You also have to push your dock as well.
Yeah, I had to set it to a button because I didn't have anything set. Hello, guys.
Hey, excellent run.
Me and you have different definitions of the word excellent.
Well, yours, your definition of excellence is about 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes faster than mine, so fair.
Oh man, that was I've done like maybe 4 or 5 runs since I came back from speedrunning Celeste. That was by far the worst one so far. That was bad.
Well, on the bright side, it was enough to secure a win for you here today. You know, I mean, we did face a couple of really tough situations with, you know, health management in a couple of dungeons, but I mean, it's still good enough for 134 and a half. You know, got to feel good to have that first win under your belt, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. The run definitely had its highlights. I went for a couple things that I shouldn't have went for. Like I went for the left dash at the tree pull, which I normally don't do. I normally go up to the bush grab. Then I got hit and had to do the tree pull twice. I went for pause buffers on hammer jump when normally I do sword buffers, and I wound up messing it up and had to redo all of that. And then obviously, like, I died, what, 4 times? Total games played 3. I don't know if that's 3 or 4.
Kind of interesting, though, that the buffer strat ends up being the one that kind of undoes you with the hammer jump. Most people traditionally see that as a safer way to go. But if you're not used to doing it all the time, I mean, you know, one little change there can kind of pay or hurt.
For sure, that's why I went for that one, because it's supposed to be safer, and then I could not see the pixel for some reason.
We were really close to getting a 0 cycle on Argus with you as well. That was very nice looking at the first half of it.
It ate my dang hook shot input. I was so sad. I was like, oh, he gave me the perfect RNG for a 0 cycle, and then it ate my hook shot. I was like, oh man.
Hey, impressive to see you go for it nonetheless.
I think my mire was probably the best part of the run for me. Like, I messed up something in Eastern, I remember. I lost like 10 seconds. Oh, my Lammo fight was nice too. Those are the 2. Both my Lammo fights are good. That's my first 0 cycle Lammo, 1 cycle Lammo 2 in like 3 months. So it's about time I remembered how to do it.
The 2 of you guys had excellent boss fights all throughout the entire run, though. Definitely a theme here. So, I mean, it was kept pretty competitive most of the way through. SpaceKat right now, if you're not watching the stream, is currently against Tower, getting ready to come up to Agate 2 pretty soon.
Yeah, I had the stream open on my side monitor, but my side monitor is like perpendicular to me, so if I'm looking at the game, I can't see the stream. But I was like keeping tabs back and forth. She was really close to me all through Light World, especially after my debacle in Tower of Hera, where I failed the bomb jump and then only had 1 heart, so I couldn't bomb jump, and then failed the intended strat.
Yeah, that fall stinks.
I don't know what happened there. That fall didn't look right. I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to be on that switch when you take it from the way.
Yeah, I purposely make sure it's a fall from the top, but I don't know.
That was very, very odd to me. You definitely shouldn't have hit that switch. I mean, I've done that a bunch.
I mean, this is a perfectly designed game, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I would hold 3rd grade programmers to no higher standards. And like, I think something that might have not been noticed was that she was actually closer than it seemed, because like when I was on the stream, I don't know how much delay there was between both of us, But
They get resets. Like your timers were synced by the time you were there.
okay.
Yeah, so we're looking at like maybe half a minute.
So she was like taking the old man when I was doing like her basement, but she already had the rippies because she does Saha. So she didn't have to do any triple stuff, and I had to do the triples, and I messed up the triples. So it was like a lot closer than it might have appeared just like distance wise.
That was a super close light world. Yeah, like the whole time.
It's definitely been really fun to watch this race. Two of you have your very own unique ways of doing a lot of different things. And, you know, looking at this, you know, sans certain deaths in certain places, you know, a lot of things were very close splits. Very excited to see what the two of you are going to be doing for the rest of this tournament.
SpaceKat definitely seems like they are on an upward. I mean, they've already, or never did, do silver arrows. From looking at the run, Half Magic really only was relevant for Cold Stare. So now that is what I would say the next safety that looks safe to cut off, and that's like 30-40 seconds because that cutscene's long. So
we got Aga 2 going here though. We have a 2-1-1 so far.
Ooh.
Oh, an unfortunate hit.
Yeah, I was introduced to SpaceKat's stream through the Dragon Feeny hosting her, and I catch the stream every now and then. She's definitely been improving a lot, like really quickly. So if she keeps up this pace, you know, we might be fighting
Star Fox.
we might be fighting for that second seed in the group. If
It'll be exciting to see the two of you guys go at this again if you get the opportunity. Clearly, the two of you are very high caliber racers.
And I'm clearly deteriorating over time, and she's improving. So we have to meet at the middle at some point. Like we have to cross each other.
It's really just a time game. And here we are dropping into Ganon, though.
Oh, he stopped weird there. What? Why? Okay, maybe somebody can explain why he sometimes just stops way earlier.
I think it's if you're inside of his hitbox when he's like teleporting.
Oh.
The more you know.
That's usually what triggers it for me. Like if I'm trying to beat him to the wall, like I'm walking inside of him, then he just like stops.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's why I usually try to go like way around now to make sure I'm like nowhere near him.
Oh yeah, I totally predicted all of her late game safeties wrong. She didn't grab Red Mail either, which is understandable.
Here we are moving on to phase 3 though, and we still have more than half the health bar left. This is looking pretty good.
Whoa, he only did one teleport the first and second time, but he had already started shooting out the fire really fast. That's crazy. One more hit for phase 3. Then we're on to the spin and fire phase. Luckily with Half Magic, if she misses Torch Lich for some reason, okay, she gets it. It's not as big of a deal.
So at this point, it would seem wise to use Fire Rod.
Yeah, you usually use Fire Rod, especially with Half Magic. I think if I remember correctly, you have to get Torch Lich in low %, and you like barely have enough magic to complete the phase 4.
Whoa, really close to the edge.
Ooh, and
one thing that a lot of people might not know about the Ganon fight is that if you get hit by the fire bats, it actually reverses your input direction for a couple frames, and so it's an easy way to fall off if you don't know.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes it looks funny. Like people who know that they're going to get hit and can't dodge it, they'll just change their movement direction.
Looks like we're setting up for a nice 3 cycle here.
Ooh, don't fall off.
Getting real close. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was like, okay, she's safe, but man, it doesn't look like it.
I would have fallen.
Okay,
there we go.
This is going to be a PB by just a little bit for SpaceKat.
Hey, it counts. Fantastic run from both of our runners here, though. Wow.
Yo, GG.
And there you have it. Just barely over an hour 50. I believe this is the PB. We'll work to see if we can get SpaceKat in here for an interview. But in the meantime, what you may be interested in seeing next up here on Speedrunning or Speed Gaming 2 is it looks like we have a Shovel Knight match coming up after this. Pretty short thing, and then we have a lot of matches coming up tomorrow. I see as many as 6 that we have scheduled throughout the day. First of those matches looks to be 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Kruya versus Maltzy, and it's going to be pretty much on the hour every hour, up till 5, then 8 through 10. So it's going to be a full packed day of NMG, and of course, obviously Randomizer on the other Speed Gaming channels. While we're at it, don't forget to follow these racers. Benteezy here in the voice chat with us, and SpaceKatUniverse, both great speedrunners of this game and many other games as well. Let's see if we can raise SpaceKat into the voice chat.
She just clarified in the race chat that her PB is actually 149, so just barely missed it. But it's still a good race nonetheless.
Well, at least we'll have a couple of extra opportunities to shave us down even further on the following races. I was very impressed by this run, though. Both of you guys really kept your composure through it. Looks like we may have SpaceKatUniverse here in the voice chat. You do need to use push to chat and make sure you unmute yourself here in the Discord channel. Ben, do you have any other thoughts or comments about this race or even the rest of the tournament? How do you see yourself doing the rest of this group stage?
Poorly if I keep dying 4 times in every run, but hopefully I can get it together. I do want to say GG to Kat before she
nice job.
takes over.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're clear.
That was a PB, correct?
No. I
Oh.
PB'd on stream, but my internet cut out halfway through, and I wasn't recording locally. So I had to restart my stream in the middle of a run, and I ended up PBing in the middle of it. It was just the craziest thing.
Well, hey, that's a better reason to just keep running this game. The more runs you do, right?
Exactly.
Well, we were on the edge of our seats for the entire race here. Particularly in the first half of the game, you guys were neck and neck throughout the light world section of things, and both of you guys did really well through some of the harder strats of the game. Very happy to see that both of you did manage to pull off a hammer jump. That was very clean.
Yeah, I got it first try. I was really surprised.
It's better than me. I got it second try.
Oh no.
But you did get it.
Oh, feels good, man.
I do want to say briefly before I go that I found out about your stream like just a little over 2 weeks ago, Kat, and you've been improving at like an incredible pace. So just keep it up.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I have one thing to say though. For all the space cadets out there, hell yeah, Batman. Hell yeah.
You heard it. You heard it here. That being said, though, one thing that did come up, while we were watching the race, you do pick up Ice Ride a little later in the run than a lot of people do. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but is there any particular reason that you grab it at that point in the run, SpaceKat?
There was, in one of my recorded split times, I really screwed up because I forgot to grab Ice Rod. So I grabbed either, and then I went straight into Swamp. So then I completely forgot, but it was one of my better runs. So I just changed my route, and I just set it it was so it didn't mess with my splits. So I just
That makes
continued to do Ice Rod after Swamp. So I just have to keep remembering not to get it anymore together. I just get them separately, and that's just how I've been doing it.
Well, I'm glad to see that you didn't forget the Ice Rod. I was like panicking about that. This is like the worst mistake anybody can ever make.
I know. I was like,
Okay,
okay, don't forget.
I am getting word that we do have Shovel Knight coming right up, so we do need to let those guys come in.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
All
sorry
right, bye
about
guys. GG.
All
I
right,
didn't mean to
thanks,
cut you off,
GG.
but yeah, the other match went late, so.
Sounds good. Well, that was SpaceKatUniverse and Benteezy. I'm Uday Mystic, and this is Zelnus.
Yep, peace out. Good luck, Shovel Knight people. Your speedrun's cool too.
GG, good luck, Shovel Knight.